Welcome to Sleepy Stories, the place where stories aren't meant to be finished. I'm Arthur, and tonight I'll be reading you a relaxing, sleepy story written by Pumby. Tonight's tale takes us to a mystical realm where rivers carry more than water. They carry dreams themselves. As you settle into your most comfortable position, allow your breathing to slow and deepen. Let the gentle cadence of this story wash over you like the softest current, carrying you toward the most peaceful sleep. In the heart of an ancient forest, where towering oaks whispered secrets that had been passed down through countless seasons, there flowed a river unlike any other. The locals called it Somnium, though few remembered why or when this name had first been spoken. Perhaps it was because those who ventured too close to its banks often found themselves overcome by the most exquisite drowsiness, as if the very air above its waters contained particles of slumber itself. The river meandered through the woodland with an almost hypnotic rhythm, its surface catching fragments of moonlight that danced and swirled like liquid silver. Unlike ordinary streams that babbled and rushed with urgency, Somnium moved with deliberate slowness, each ripple forming perfect circles that expanded outward before gently dissolving into the next. The sound it made was barely perceptible, a soft susurration that seemed to emanate not from the movement of water over stone, but from some deeper source within the earth itself. Along its banks grew flowers that bloomed only in darkness. Night jasmine unfurled its star-shaped petals as the sun disappeared, releasing a fragrance so intoxicating that it seemed to slow time itself. Moonflowers, pale as fresh snow, opened their trumpet-shaped blooms to catch the silver light, while clusters of evening primrose painted the shoreline in gentle shades of cream and yellow. These nocturnal gardens created a natural border between the waking world and the realm of dreams that the river guarded so carefully. But it was not merely the flora that made this place extraordinary. The river held within its depths something far more precious than water. It carried the dreams of every living creature for miles around. As night fell and the forest settled into its evening rhythm, wisps of ethereal light would begin to rise from the water's surface. These luminous tendrils, visible only to those whose hearts remained open to magic, were the dreams themselves, floating upward like incandescent smoke to find their way to sleeping minds throughout the woodland. Each dream possessed its own unique radiance. The dreams of children glowed with rainbow hues, swirling with impossible colours that shifted and changed like aurora in the northern sky. Young lovers' dreams pulsed with warm gold and rose, their light gentle but persistent, like candle flames that refused to flicker. The dreams of the elderly emanated a deep, peaceful blue, steady and comforting as the glow of evening stars. Even the dreams of woodland creatures added their own luminescence. The silver threads of deer dreams, the emerald sparkles of dreams belonging to ancient trees, and the tiny pinpricks of light that rose from sleeping insects and night birds. For generations, the people of the nearby villages had spoken of Somnium in hushed, reverent tones. Parents would tell their children stories of the sleeping river, though they themselves had never seen it. The tales passed from grandmother to grandchild described a place where nightmares went to be healed, where restless souls could find peace, and where the most beautiful dreams were born. Some claimed that those fortunate enough to drink from its waters would be blessed with the most restorative sleep of their lives, waking refreshed as if they had slumbered for 1,000 years. Yet the river remained hidden from most who sought it. It revealed itself only to those who approached with genuine need for rest, whose spirits had grown weary from the burdens of waking life. The path to find Somnium could not be mapped or marked with stones. It appeared differently for each seeker, winding through the forest in ways that defied conventional navigation. Some found it by following the scent of night-blooming flowers on the evening breeze. Others discovered it by listening for a sound softer than silence itself, a melody that seemed to call from the very centre of tranquility. On this particular evening, as autumn painted the forest in shades of amber and gold, a young woman named Eleanor found herself walking along what appeared to be an ordinary forest path. She'd been travelling for days, her mind heavy with worries that seemed to multiply with each passing hour. Sleep had become elusive, visiting her only in brief, fitful moments that left her more exhausted than before. The concerns of her daily life followed her even into rest, creating a tangle of anxious dreams that provided no respite from her waking troubles. As Elena moved deeper into the woodland, she began to notice subtle changes in her surroundings. The air grew softer somehow, carrying with it a fragrance that reminded her of her grandmother's garden at twilight. The sounds of the forest, the rustle of small creatures, the distant call of night birds, the gentle sighs of wind through leaves, began to blend into something approaching melody. Her footsteps, which had been quick and purposeful, gradually slowed to match the peaceful rhythm that seemed to pulse through the very ground beneath her feet. Without consciously choosing to do so, Elena found herself leaving the main path and following a barely visible trail that curved around massive tree trunks and wound between clusters of flowering shrubs. The night-blooming plants seemed to glow with their own inner light, creating a natural pathway that drew her forward with gentle insistence. As she walked, the weight of her worries began to feel less pressing, as if the forest itself was absorbing some of her burden with each step she took. The sound reached her first, that whisper-soft murmur that seemed to come from everywhere, and nowhere at once. It was neither the rush of fast-moving water, nor the gentle babble of a brook, but something altogether more soothing. Eleanor paused, closing her eyes to listen more carefully. The sound seemed to resonate not just in her ears, but in her very bones, creating a vibration so subtle and comforting that she felt her breathing naturally begin to deepen and slow. When she opened her eyes and continued forward, pushing aside a curtain of hanging willow branches, Eleanor gasped softly at the sight that greeted her. Before her flowed the most beautiful river she had ever seen, its surface so still and perfect that it might have been polished obsidian reflecting the stars above. The water moved with such grace and deliberation that each ripple seemed choreographed by some benevolent force that understood the true meaning of peace graphed by. The moonlight caught the water's surface, revealing something truly extraordinary. Tiny points of light began to emerge from the river's depths, rising like luminous bubbles toward the surface, before breaking free and drifting upward into the night air. Eleanor watched in wonder as these glowing wisps took on different shapes and colours, some pulsing with gentle warmth, others shimmering with cool silver radiance. She realised she was witnessing the dreams themselves as they journeyed from the river to find their sleeping recipients throughout the forest. As she approached the water's edge, Elena noticed that the riverbank was carpeted with the softest moss she'd ever seen. The emerald cushion seemed to invite her to sit, and as she lowered herself onto its velvety surface, she felt an immediate sense of relief wash through her tired limbs. The moss was warm despite the cool night air, as if it held within its fibres the memory of countless peaceful moments. From her position by the water, Elena could see more clearly how the river worked its magic. Dreams of every size and intensity floated within the current, some moving quickly toward their destinations, while others lingered, swirling in gentle eddies as if savouring their time in the sacred waters. She watched a particularly bright dream, glowing with the pure white light of deep, healing rest, as it slowly surfaced near where she sat. The luminous orb bobbed gently on the water's surface, before lifting into the air and drifting away through the trees, no doubt seeking someone in desperate need of peaceful sleep. Elena cupped her hands and dipped them into the river, half expecting the water to feel different from any she had known. But Somnium's water was simply water, cool, clear, and refreshing. Yet as she brought it to her lips and took a small sip, she felt something shift within her. The anxious thoughts that had been circling through her mind like restless birds suddenly quieted. Her shoulders, which she hadn't realised were hunched with tension, slowly relaxed and lowered. Even her breathing, which had been shallow and quick for so many weeks, deepened into a more natural rhythm. The transformation was gradual but undeniable. As Elena sat beside the sleeping river, she felt her body beginning to remember what true relaxation felt like. Her eyelids grew pleasantly heavy, though she fought against the drowsiness, wanting to continue watching the magical display of dreams rising from the water. Each glowing wisp that emerged seemed to carry with it a message of peace, a promise that rest was not only possible, but necessary for the soul's well-being. A soft rustling in the nearby undergrowth drew her attention to a small clearing just beyond the riverbank. There, arranged as if by invisible hands, she discovered a bed of fallen leaves that had been gathered into the most inviting nest imaginable. The leaves, maple, oak and birch, had fallen in perfect condition, their autumn colours still vibrant despite their separation from their parent trees. They formed a natural mattress that seemed to beckon to her with irresistible comfort. Eleanor rose from her spot on the moss, feeling as if she were moving through honey rather than air. Every movement felt deliberate and peaceful, as if urgency itself had been dissolved by the river's influence. She made her way to the leaf bed and discovered that it was even more comfortable than it appeared. The leaves had somehow arranged themselves to support her body perfectly, cradling her in an embrace that felt both secure and infinitely soft. As she settled into her natural bed, Elena noticed that the night sounds of the forest had transformed into something approaching a lullaby. The gentle hooting of owls provided a bass note, while the soft chirping of crickets added melody. The whisper of wind through branches created a rhythm that seemed designed specifically to encourage sleep. Even the subtle splash of dreams emerging from the river contributed to this nocturnal symphony, adding tiny notes of liquid music that harmonized perfectly with the forest's evening song. Above her, the canopy of leaves filtered the moonlight into a dappled pattern that danced gently across her closed eyelids. Elena felt as if she were lying beneath a natural cathedral, its living pillars reaching toward a star-studded ceiling that stretched infinitely upward. The connection between earth and sky felt tangible here, as if the sleeping river served as a conduit between the physical world and the realm of dreams. Time seemed to slow and stretch beside the river, becoming as fluid as the water itself. Minutes felt like hours, yet hours passed like moments. Elena drifted in and out of consciousness, never quite sure if she was awake or dreaming. In this liminal state, she began to understand that perhaps the distinction between sleeping and waking was far less important than she had always believed. What mattered was the quality of peace one could find, whether in dreams or in quiet moments of stillness. The river continued its eternal flow beside her, carrying its precious cargo of dreams to sleeping minds throughout the woodland. Eleanor watched through half-closed eyes as particularly beautiful dreams emerged from the water, some glowing with the warm amber of contentment, others shimmering with the cool blue of deep healing sleep. Occasionally, she glimpsed dreams that sparkled with multiple colours, rainbow wisps that seemed to contain entire worlds of wonder and possibility. As the night deepened, Elena felt herself becoming part of the river's ancient cycle. Her own dreams, when they came, seemed to join the luminous procession rising from Somnium's waters. She dreamed of floating downstream on a current of starlight, her worries dissolving like sugar in warm tea. She dreamed of conversations with the ancient trees, who shared their secrets of patience and endurance. She dreamed of flying alongside the glowing wisps, learning their pathways through the forest as they sought their destined dreamers. The boundary between Elena's consciousness and the river's magic grew increasingly fluid. She felt her essence becoming lighter, more permeable, as if she too might rise from the water as a luminous dream to comfort some distant soul in need of peace. The sensation was not frightening, but profoundly comforting, a reminder that all beings were connected by invisible threads of shared experience and mutual need for rest. In her deepest moments of relaxation, Eleanor sensed the presence of others who had found their way to this sacred place. Though she saw no one, she felt the gentle echoes of countless pilgrims who had sought Somnium's healing waters throughout the centuries. Their gratitude seemed to linger in the air like invisible incense, creating an atmosphere of profound thanksgiving that enhanced the river's natural tranquility. The dreams that emerged from Somnium seemed to respond to Elena's presence, as if sensing a kindred spirit in need of their gentle ministrations. She watched with growing wonder as a particularly radiant wisp rose from the water directly in front of her resting place. This dream glowed with soft lavender light, pulsing gently like a sleeping heart, and instead of drifting away through the trees, it hovered above the water's surface, as if waiting for something. Slowly, almost hesitantly, the luminous orb began to move toward Elena. She remained perfectly still, hardly daring to breathe as the dream approached. When it finally reached her, settling just above her upturned palm, she felt a warmth that penetrated not just her skin, but seemed to seep into her very soul. The dream pulsed once, twice, and then gently dissolved into thousands of tiny sparkles that absorbed into her skin like morning dew. The effect was immediate and profound. Eleanor felt a wave of the most exquisite drowsiness wash over her, but it was unlike any tiredness she had ever experienced. This was not the heavy fatigue of exhaustion or the restless weariness of anxiety. Instead, it was the blessed heaviness of a body and mind finally ready to surrender completely to rest. Her eyelids fluttered closed, and she felt herself sinking deeper into the welcoming embrace of her leaf bed. As sleep began to claim her, Eleanor became aware that the river's magic extended far beyond the simple granting of peaceful slumber. In her drowsy state, she began to perceive the intricate network of connections that linked all sleeping creatures throughout the forest. She sensed the gentle breathing of deer curled beneath distant trees, their dreams filled with memories of sun-dappled meadows and cool streams. She felt the quiet contentment of rabbits nestled in their burrows, dreaming of endless fields of clover and safe warren tunnels. Even the trees themselves seemed to participate in this nocturnal communion. Through some mysterious perception that defied rational explanation, Eleanor became aware of the slow, deep dreams of the ancient oaks and maples that surrounded the river. Their dreams moved with the patience of centuries, filled with memories of countless seasons, storms weathered, and the gentle touch of rain and sunshine. These arboreal visions provided a foundation of stability and endurance that supported all the smaller, more fleeting dreams that danced above the water's surface. The river continued its eternal song, and Elena realised that what she had initially taken for the simple sound of moving water was actually far more complex. Woven into Somnium's gentle murmur were the whispers of every dream it had ever carried, creating a symphony of rest that had been building for millennia. Each dream that had passed through these waters left its own subtle note in the ongoing composition, adding layers of harmony that grew richer and more beautiful with each passing night. In her deepening slumber, Eleanor began to understand that she had been chosen not just to receive the river's gift of rest, but to contribute to its ancient purpose. Her own dreams, when they finally came, would join the eternal cycle, rising from the water to comfort future seekers who would find their way to this hidden sanctuary. The thought filled her with a profound sense of purpose and belonging that she had never experienced before. The night air grew softer around her, as if the forest itself was adjusting its embrace to ensure her complete comfort. The temperature seemed to stabilise at exactly the perfect degree of coolness, while the humidity settled into an ideal balance that kept her skin pleasantly moist without any trace of dampness. Even the gentle breeze that stirred the leaves above seemed to move in rhythm with her breathing, creating a natural ventilation that enhanced rather than disturbed her rest. As Eleanor drifted deeper into the realm of sleep, her consciousness began to merge with the river's flow. She found herself swimming through liquid starlight, her body weightless and free from all the aches and tensions that had accumulated over years of carrying life's burdens. The water around her was neither warm nor cool, but perfectly neutral, like an extension of her own being that supported and cradled her with infinite gentleness. In this aquatic dream space, Elena encountered other dreamers who had found their way to Somnium's waters. They appeared not as solid forms, but as gentle presences that radiated peace and understanding. Some seemed to be recent arrivals like herself, their dream selves still carrying traces of the worries they had brought to the river. Others appeared to have been part of the river's community for much longer, their essence so integrated with the water's flow that they seemed almost indistinguishable from the dreams themselves. Communication in this space occurred not through words but through direct transmission of feeling and understanding. Eleanor found herself sharing her story without speaking, allowing the accumulated weight of her anxieties to flow out of her like water from an overfilled vessel. In return, she received waves of compassion and reassurance from her fellow dreamers, each offering their own understanding of how the river had transformed their relationship with rest and peace. One presence, ancient and deeply serene, seemed to serve as a guide for newcomers to this dream realm. Without words, this entity conveyed the river's history and purpose, sharing visions of how Somnium had come to exist in the first place. Elena saw glimpses of a time when the boundary between dreams and reality was far more permeable, when rivers of starlight flowed openly between worlds, carrying not just water, but pure consciousness itself. She learned that Somnium was one of the last remaining connections to this earlier age, a bridge between the mundane world of daily concerns and the infinite realm of possibility that existed within the landscape of sleep. The river had been preserved through the devotion of countless guardians, some human, some not, who understood that such sanctuaries were essential for the spiritual well-being of all conscious creatures. The knowledge flowed into Elena's sleeping mind like honey, sweet and nourishing, filling spaces within her consciousness that she hadn't even realized were empty. She began to understand that her journey to find the river had not been accidental, but part of a larger pattern that connected all seekers of genuine rest. The path had revealed itself to her precisely when her need had become great enough to attract Somnium's attention, drawing her to this place where healing could finally begin. As her dreams deepened further, Elena found herself becoming one with the river's current. Her individual identity remained intact, but it was now part of something infinitely larger and more beautiful than she had ever imagined possible. She flowed with the dreams of children and elders, artists and farmers, scholars and wanderers, each contributing their unique perspective to the vast tapestry of human experience that the river carried within its depths. The sensation of floating in this stream of collective consciousness was overwhelmingly peaceful. Elena felt her own worries and fears being gently dissolved by the accumulated wisdom of all who had found rest in these waters. Her anxieties about the future transformed into a deep trust in the natural rhythm of life's unfolding. Her regrets about the past softened into acceptance and understanding, while her present moment awareness expanded to embrace the profound contentment that came from being exactly where she belonged. Time continued its fluid dance around the sleeping river, and Elena's rest deepened into the most restorative sleep she had ever experienced. Her body seemed to remember its original blueprint for perfect health and vitality, releasing years of accumulated tension and stress. Her breathing settled into the slow, deep rhythm of profound relaxation, while her heart rate decreased to match the peaceful pulse of the river itself. In the depths of her slumber, Elena dreamed that she was helping to tend the garden of night-blooming flowers that surrounded Somnium's banks. Working alongside other dream gardeners, she planted new varieties of peace-inducing blossoms and tended existing plants with infinite care and patience. Each flower they nurtured would contribute its own unique fragrance to the complex aromatherapy that helped guide weary travellers to the river's healing embrace. The work was not labour but pure joy, performed in a state of meditative awareness that transformed every action into a form of prayer. Elena found herself understanding the secret language of growing things, knowing instinctively which plants needed more water, which required specific nutrients, and which were ready to share their seeds with the wind for propagation throughout the forest. As she tended the dream garden, Elena noticed that her own essence was becoming more luminous, taking on some of the qualities of the dreams that rose from the river. She realized that extended contact with Somnium's waters was gradually transforming her into something more than merely human, not in a way that diminished her humanity, but in a way that revealed the divine potential that had always existed within her sleeping soul. The transformation was gentle and completely natural, like a flower gradually opening to reveal the beauty that had been contained within its bud all along. Eleanor felt no fear of this change, only a deep gratitude for the opportunity to become more fully herself than she had ever imagined possible. She understood that this was the river's greatest gift, not just the granting of peaceful sleep, but the revelation of each visitor's truest, most luminous nature, whose nature. As Elena continued her work in the ethereal garden, she became aware of a gentle stirring throughout the forest. Dawn was still hours away, yet something was shifting in the quality of the night itself. The dreams rising from Somnium began to take on subtly different hues, their colours deepening and becoming more saturated, as if the river was preparing for some celestial event that occurred only rarely in this mystical realm. The night-blooming flowers around her seemed to sense this change as well. Their petals opened wider, releasing waves of fragrance so intoxicating that Eleanor felt her consciousness expanding beyond the boundaries of her individual awareness. She found herself perceiving not just her immediate surroundings, but the entire network of sleeping creatures throughout the forest, all connected by invisible threads of shared dreams that pulsed like silver veins through the darkness. In this expanded state of perception, Elena discovered that the river held layers of meaning she had not previously understood. Somnium was not merely a repository for dreams, but a living entity in its own right, possessed of an ancient consciousness that had been nurturing the sleep of countless beings for millennia beyond memory. The water itself was alive with purpose, each molecule infused with the accumulated wisdom of every peaceful moment it had ever witnessed. As this revelation settled into her awareness, Eleanor felt the river's attention turn toward her with benevolent curiosity. The consciousness that dwelt within Somnium's depths was vast yet gentle, powerful yet infinitely patient. It communicated not through words or images, but through direct transmission of pure understanding, filling Elena's mind with knowledge that bypassed her rational faculties and settled directly into her intuitive wisdom. She learned that the river's origins stretched back to the very beginning of consciousness itself, to a time when the first dreams had emerged from the primordial darkness of unaware existence. Somnium had been born from that initial moment of awakening, created as a sanctuary where the delicate art of dreaming could be preserved and nurtured throughout the ages that followed. The river showed Elena visions of its early days, when the world was younger and the boundaries between different realms of existence were far more permeable. In those ancient times, beings of pure light had walked freely between the waking world and the landscape of dreams, serving as bridges between different modes of consciousness. These luminous entities had been the river's first guardians, establishing the sacred protocols that still governed its operation countless eons later. As civilizations rose and fell around it, Somnium had adapted its methods of concealment and protection. Sometimes it flowed openly through valleys, where enlightened peoples recognized its sacred nature and built temples to honor its gift of restorative sleep. During darker periods, when fear and materialism dominated human consciousness, the river had hidden itself deep within forgotten forests, accessible only to those whose hearts remained open to mystery and wonder. Elena saw how the river had survived the great forgetting that had befallen much of humanity, that gradual loss of connection to the subtle realms that existed alongside the physical world. While most people learned to dismiss their dreams as meaningless neural static, Somnium had continued its patient work, ensuring that the capacity for transformative sleep remained available to any who truly needed it. The visions shifted to show Elena the river's current guardians, beings who had chosen to dedicate their existence to maintaining the sanctuary's sacred function. Some were humans who had found their way to Somnium and chosen never to leave, gradually transforming into something between mortal and spirit as they merged their consciousness with the river's eternal flow. Others were nature spirits who had always dwelt in the forest, drawn to serve the river by their deep understanding of the cycles of rest and renewal that govern all natural life. These guardians worked in subtle ways, maintaining the delicate ecosystem that supported the river's magic. They tended the night-blooming gardens, ensuring that the proper fragrances were always available to guide seekers along the hidden paths. They watched over the quality of dreams that flowed through the water, filtering out nightmares and anxieties that might contaminate the pure stream of healing rest. Most importantly, they served as gentle shepherds for visitors like Elena, helping newcomers navigate the profound transformation that contact with the river invariably brought. As Elena absorbed this knowledge, she felt her own role in the river's ecosystem beginning to clarify. She understood that her arrival at Somnium had not been the end of a journey, but the beginning of a much larger adventure. The river was offering her a choice. She could drink from its waters, receive the gift of peaceful sleep, and return to her ordinary life refreshed and healed. Or she could choose to become part of the river's eternal mission, dedicating herself to ensuring that this sanctuary remained available for future generations of weary souls. The decision required no deliberation. Elena felt the rightness of her choice settling into her bones like warm honey, bringing with it a sense of purpose more profound than anything she had ever experienced. She would become one of Somnium's guardians, not because she felt obligated, but because every fibre of her being recognised this as her truest calling. As she made this commitment, Elena felt her transformation accelerating. Her physical form remained intact, but she could sense her essence becoming more fluid, more connected to the subtle energies that flowed through the river and the surrounding forest. Her perception expanded further, allowing her to sense the dreams of creatures far beyond the immediate vicinity, sleeping birds in distant trees, hibernating animals deep in their winter dens, even the slow seasonal dreams of entire groves of trees. The night air around her began to shimmer with visible energy, streams of luminous mist that flowed between the sleeping forest and the river's surface. Elena realised she was seeing the actual infrastructure of the dream network, the pathways along which peaceful visions travelled to reach their intended recipients. These streams of light formed a complex web that connected every sleeping consciousness within the river's sphere of influence, creating a vast neural network of shared rest and healing. With her enhanced perception, Elena could see how individual dreams were crafted and directed. The river drew upon the accumulated experiences and wisdom of all who had ever found peace in its waters, weaving these elements together into visions perfectly suited to each dreamer's specific needs. A restless child might receive dreams of flying through starlit skies, while an anxious adult would be gifted with visions of walking through endless gardens where every flower whispered reassurance and comfort. As Elena settled deeper into her role as guardian of the sleeping river, she understood that some stories are never truly meant to end. They simply flow onward like Somnium itself, carrying their magic to new dreamers who will discover their own path to the water's edge. The river continues its eternal work, weaving dreams from starlight and offering sanctuary to all who seek genuine rest. And perhaps tonight, as you drift toward your own peaceful slumber, you too might glimpse the luminous wisps that rise from those sacred waters, carrying with them the promise that true tranquility is always within reach for those who know how to listen, for the gentle whisper of dreams finding their way home.